Hello, Internet. This is Christopher. We're back again for another episode of Realtor Reacts. Um, we are on a bit of a journey here, running around exploring the deep depths, corners of the Internet. And I'm being exposed. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I'm getting familiar with a number of the various channels that have something to say about the villages as a community, um, and it's been an experience so far. I'm doing my very best to derive value from these engagements, from these watching hours, and I think I have finally found a set of channels and content creators um, that work for what we're trying to accomplish here. Later on in another episode, I'm going to talk about one in particular that I'm pretty impressed with. I'll even go as far as to say that if I were to model my presentation and goals for my channel, I probably would want to mirror a lot of what he's doing on his particular channel. But we're going to get to him a little bit later on in the series because I want to give him his due screen time. Not that he needs my help in any shape or form. This gentleman here is a little bit more of a recent uh, creator and resident. I pre-watched maybe about the first minute and a half of this just to see, if there was going to be any value here. I do enjoy his presentation style. I do enjoy his content thus far. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. This is something that I wanted to touch base on for a while anyways. The title of this is I Bought a Turnkey House in the Villages. And I believe this channel is called The Villages Chef. It may be chief. I do have a little bit of dyslexia. So, and those two words look very similar to me. I believe it says chef though. So let's go ahead and jump in here and see what this gentleman, whose name I don't know, unfortunately, has to say about buying a turnkey home.
Hi everyone, thanks for watching. So last July I came down for a lifestyle visit. I ended up buying this house in the north end of the Villages, and it was a turnkey house. If you don't know what a turnkey house is, it means it usually comes full of furniture, sofas, chairs, beds, all that kind of stuff. And it can be a little enticing or...
So let's take a quick second here and talk about definitions, right? What is a partially furnished turnkey, or I should say partially turnkey? Partially furnished and furnished, I think those are pretty self-explanatory. Okay, you either have a home with the appropriate furniture in the appropriate spaces in its entirety, right? That would be fully furnished. If you have a room or two missing from that, you have a partially furnished home. Partially turnkey and turnkey. Partially turnkey is a new term that really I've adopted in the last, I want to say, probably a year. I had an incident with another agency where I was wrestling with the definitions because there was a home in the inventory that more or less met the definition of turnkey. As I understand it, as I was trained on it when I worked with the developer, and in some ways that package had exceeded the definition, but in other ways it fell notably short. And so I was wrestling with, does this actually constitute a turnkey package as I understand it? And my manager at that time was just so helpful, as I came to expect from him, where it's like, it's fluid, it's loose, it's arbitrary. It can be whatever you want. Well, we're going to disagree. Definitions matter because you are setting expectations in the marketplace. You are saying a thing, and that thing is generally understood to mean this. And in short of that, when you're redefining things to suit your individual purposes, you're diminishing its value, and you are, dare I say it, engaging in misleading behavior. So, with all that being said, I'll get off my soapbox for a moment here. Turnkey means pots, pans, dishes, linens, and towels. Okay. The only thing that should be missing from this home is food in the fridge. Okay. And so it's fully furnished. To kind of understand this, you have to be fully furnished to start. And then by adding pots, pans, dishes, linens, towels, silverware, the whole shebang, right? You could even extend coffee pot, right? You can exceed the definition. You can extend lawn care equipment, things like that. But the core items need to be there in order to qualify the label of turnkey on the professional side, particularly when you're doing marketing, in my opinion. And I hope that you would agree with that. So that's what he means: pots, pans, dishes, linens, towels, the whole thing. Move-in ready is the notion behind turnkey. Okay, let's continue.
Seem like an easier way to go, especially if you're moving long distance. You don't want to bring your old furniture. You might feel like, hey, it's going to save in the long run. Seeing the turnkey furniture in my mind sounded like a simple way to move in. But to be honest with you, the minute I moved in, I got rid of everything. As I moved into
Okay. There are two major components that sell in the villages, plain and simple. The first one is privacy. Privacy is the largest commodity in the home sales world. The second one is convenience. And you'll notice price isn't part of this, right? I didn't say price. You were expecting me to say price, but that's really not the case. In the villages, privacy is king and convenience is queen. Convenience I have seen, and when I say convenience, I mean I don't have to go furniture shopping. I don't have to paint the walls. I don't have to tear out all these, older materials and replace them. Some folks, like myself, get excited at the idea of doing a renovation. Get excited about the idea of putting my own personal touches and tastes and going through the design process and the selection process and being on site to get the subcontractors and the installers and look at the finished product, right? I get excited about these things. Okay. But I'm not everyone. The majority of folks that I engage with would much rather just have it be there day one. They much rather just not have to deal with it. A lot of our clientele here in the villages has already done renos where they're coming from. So, and they don't want to be pestered with that. They don't want to mess with it. It's been detrimental to a certain extent. I've even had my most recent purchaser. We had this conversation because she just did not want to have to do anything to the house, including putting furniture in it. And I said, I will go with you. I will pick out the furniture with you. I will sit down. We will go over the theming and the design and the color palette. We can go through this process together. I will be with you every step of the way. Bear in mind, this is not part of my job. This is after the closing. I've already got my commission. But this is a matter of service, extended services, right? And maintaining and continuing the relationship. And I want her to be happy. I want her to be happy with her purchase because I want those positive feelings that she's having about the home to be associated with the services that I provided her. Okay. And it's fun. It's fun to hang out with folks. When I'm not having to perform my official duties, it's fun just to be me and just hang out and go do something fun like furniture shopping. I know I'm strange like that. So he bought it turnkey for the convenience element for all the reasons that he's outlined here. And then he discarded all of it, which, believe it or not, happens more oftentimes than you think. There is this notion as well that it's cost saving, and that one I'd have to agree with. Right, when you're pricing a turnkey package into a listing, right, it's usually just done on levels, right? It's 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. Usually you're not going above $10,000. Very rarely will I price a turnkey package above $10,000. And you're saying, Chris, have you lost your mind? This furniture can be $20,000, $30,000. Yes, new. This furniture can be $20,000, $30,000. Used, on site, your selections, not necessarily the selections of the prospective buyer. Remember, they're buying the convenience. They're not necessarily buying your taste. They're buying your convenience. Okay. The value doesn't translate the same way. And in this particular case, he found that the reality is that he bought the convenience and then didn't like the selections. Let's continue on with this.
The house, and I started thinking about it and looking at the furniture more closely. I realized it wasn't my style. It was much older stuff. It might have been good in the day, but I ended up getting rid of everything, and it truly became a hassle. So if you're interested in buying a turnkey house, I would suggest don't buy it because of the furniture, unless you absolutely love the furniture and it's current. But sometimes a turnkey house can feel like a teaser and maybe motivate a sale that makes you overlook the actual house itself. So I would suggest.
I don't agree with that statement per se. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. People who desire to purchase a turnkey home are not buying the furniture. They're buying the convenience, right? And I have seen this convenience element trump price, right? Going back to the beginning of my little rant there, you would think that price would be paramount and king and first. It's not in this case. Obviously, turnkey has more categorical value. In your seasonal type properties, your investment type properties. In this particular case, what has happened is that I suspect this is a full-time move for him. And when you're doing a full-time move, and this is why turnkey doesn't play out as well in full-time residency type homes. And for a definition, that's basically anything over 1,500 square feet with a 2-car garage more or less qualifies as a full-time residency consideration. And you have the tow pads out there, and you could argue that can work as well too. But when you're living in a house full-time with somebody else's furniture selections, that's probably not going to be going on for very long. I'll put it that way. Let's jump back in here. People buy the convenience.
Reconsidering or take a close look and imagine if you really want that furniture. Truly, the house is the more important part, right? And the location and all that kind of stuff. So the first week I moved in, I ended up getting rid of all the stuff. One of the things I discovered when I moved it was all the damage underneath the furniture. The carpets were destroyed. There were stains everywhere. It was
okay. So let's look at this because he's showing us before photos. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at, and this is kind of critical, and one of the things that as a professional drives me up the wall, right? It drives me up the wall almost as bad as I have countertops. I've got granite here and Formica over there and solid surface over here, and they're all different colors, and there's no through line. That's my own thing, right? This is a hodgepodge furniture. This kind of goes back to 2,000, 4,000, right? Selections, right? Where's the value? Okay, we're buying the convenience. So we got to look at the quality of the furniture, the style. Is it modern, right? Does it fit the space? Is it uniform? I want to go back real quick and look at this. Let's just roll through. I'm going to mute him for just a second because I just want to catch the visual here. So okay. Right. So this table, right, this is very early 2000s. Okay. You got the bleach wood display cabinet there. I got the fire. Yep. All right. That's nice. We like that. Right. I got 2 rose colored chairs up against this wall. This end table and this end table are a matching set. And it looks like this is a full leather recliner, and this has the microfiber on it. So these are not the same set. I also have another matching end table over here. So these 3 pieces here are of a set, and then this is an oddball. Do these lamps match? These lamps do match. There is no coordination in this package. These are what I call the leftovers, right? Folks will sometimes do a furniture package in the villages because, well, it is less expensive for you to move all your furniture here. It is also less expensive for them to move all their furniture out. And so sometimes you'll get a turnkey home or a furnished home with the remainder balance or leftovers. The convenience element is still present. I completely understand now with this information why he elected to completely change this out, because let's look at his background here, right? What do we have? We have a continuity. We have furniture selections that roll with the theme. He also painted his walls gray. And so he's uniformed the theme and the presentation of the home. I don't know if he did this on his own or if he had a designer do it. If he did it on his own, I applaud him. From what I can see here, this space flows nicely and the furnishings there within complement the space as well. Let's go ahead and jump back in here. Let me unmute him and kind of move forward a little bit.
Rough. This house is 20 years old. 20 years from now, my furniture is not going to be the best either. Now, there are some turnkey houses that are, I'm sure, have gorgeous furniture, or professional designers maybe stage the house properly. And in those cases, I think a turnkey might be a good deal. My suggestion is buy the house based on the structure, the bones of the house, and the location itself. Disregard the furniture. That's just my suggestion. I really don't know. I'm not a realtor. Getting rid of
Don't worry, Chef, I am. Yeah, this is leftover stuff. He said something there, and I wanna touch base on that because it's important. We live in an era of staging homes, and I don't want to say that I've never really seen the value in staging. I'm coming around to this idea. The problem, and I shouldn't say problem. The cautionary that I want to put forward here is this. You as a consumer have to be very clear on what it is you're looking at. Ask questions. I spend a lot of time in the open houses, as you probably well know. Okay. Folks, the folks who get the most out of that experience are the ones who ask questions. I get a lot of folks, I would say probably the majority, right? Probably the majority, right? Do their darndest just to avoid talking to me at all. Okay. And that's fine. I'm here to help. And if you don't want assistance, if you don't value my input, that's okay. I'll save it for the next guest. So you walk into a space and it's beautiful and it's laid out. Okay. And it's themed, right? You probably want to be a little suspicious. Is this staged? Because staged is not turnkey. Staged is not furnished. Are there staging companies who are willing to sell you that furniture that is present in the home? Absolutely. Are they going to do it at a value? Probably not. There's going to be a considerable built-in profit margin there. You have to think about this for a moment. There's going to be a considerable profit margin built in there because now they have to go through the inconvenience of restocking their supply, right? The staging companies oftentimes have a warehousing system, and depending upon how successful they are, right, they've got to move this stuff around. They've got to put it in. They've got to maintain it in a high quality state. They charge, someone charged by the week, someone charged by the month, but there are expenses with this. I looked at launching one of these probably about 10 years ago and kind of having it be just a correlated service with the real estate services. So, but it is a intensive overhead for this type to do it right. Okay. To do it right is intensive overhead. Even to do it mediocrely, it is expensive to do staging. So you want to be a little careful because you can wind up on the opposite end of this situation where he's buying the remainder balance, the leftovers here. Hopefully, they didn't play a major role in the pricing. This was just more or less a convenience item that was thrown in for the same consideration to help move the property. Uh, if you get into a very professionally done staged house, you're probably going to be paying a substantial premium for that furniture and that convenience. Maybe it's worth it to you, maybe it's not. Just be aware of it. I get a lot of folks who will come in and they'll get mad because I'm standing in a staged home and it's like, oh, does this home come furnished? No, this furniture is staged, right? Oh, so this furniture you can't, it's not even option to buy, right? In a lot of cases. Generally not. In the staging companies, like I said, they're gonna charge if you can get on the phone and convince them to sell the staged furniture, right? It's gonna be a substantial premium. It's not gonna hit your value trigger in the back of your head, and it's probably not gonna work out. Okay. So just be aware, ask questions, make sure we understand what we're looking at, and get a furniture inventory sheet. My God, I can't, I don't understand. There is so much lackadaisicalness around this. Um, the furniture package is part of the contract, it's part of the negotiations. Have it in writing. Get a furniture inventory sheet put together with the material that is supposed to convey with the property and make sure that both parties sign it. Right? Ideally, if you can do that at the time of contract, great. If not, make sure that there's verbiage in your contracts that say that this inventory sheet will be filled out and signed by this date. Same thing with getting a secondary escrow deposit. You have a slot on the back end of the contract to add additional terms. So use it. All right, let me jump over here real quick.
The furniture was a hassle, and you're not going to make that much money on it because it's old used furniture. When I first came down, I was looking at both new homes with Villages Realtors and used homes with a MLS Realtor. There was a house very similar to mine, one that I have now, that was brand new down in DeLuna. It was about the same size, similar layout, but it came with a bond, and the bond really turned me off. So I thought I could take the money from the bond that I would put in a bond, let's say it was about $30,000, and instead buy a older home in the north end and invest. And I think that was probably a good decision because I do like this house now that I've gutted it basically. The first thing I did was paint the house myself. I put in LVP. So what you see here now is LVP.
So here's a situation that I was describing earlier, right? This gentleman saw the value in engaging in this exercise. And I think we can agree, based on the photographs and what he's sharing here, this home looks and feels completely different than it did prior to. He came in and he put in his vision, right? You hear me talk about new home as a blank canvas, and why do new homes sell at a higher rate for less money? We've touched down on this point a few times. I'm sure we're going to touch down on it a few more, right? The whole notion behind new home is to put the minimal material in because they're anticipating that you're going to tear that out and then you're going to put your tastes and desires within the home. And so it's priced lower to take that into consideration. Now, obviously, the pricing is also about movement of inventory in the speed by which that happens. But the motivations of a developer versus the motivations of a individual seller are very different, and thus the presentation of sale is very different. Here, what he's done is he has, and hopefully he doesn't see this. Maybe he'll see it. This is really a worst case scenario. He's probably paid a bit more for this house because it's a more established area in an established home. He's paid hopefully not too much in consideration for the existing furniture package, which turned out to be of no real value to him. And then he's essentially taken all the pre-existing value that was there and he gutted all of that out and then replaced it with all new materials. Now, is he happy with the end product? Yes, thank goodness, right? But all this wasted value has occurred between the furniture package, between the pre-existing upgrades, And this is really kind of the challenge. I get, like I said earlier, I get excited about the idea of doing a reno, but when you're buying something with when you're going into this process, you have to go into it with the understanding that you're going to structure your offer in a way that's realistic to secure the property, while taking into consideration all the investment you're going to need to do in order to modernize it. And later on in the Insight series, we're gonna talk about the realities around negotiations, and what are kind of the elements that should go into that, right? With the end goal being to achieve the purchase, but what can we realistically do in a negotiation to have it make sense for all parties? Okay, so this is gorgeous, and I'm thrilled with what he's done here. I hope he's thrilled with it. I just hate to think, he's probably overpaid for this. Oh goodness, I don't even want to put a number on it, but it's not a huge number, but it's in the thousands. Let's jump back in here and finish this up. Somehow I've made a 30-minute video out of 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Let me be quiet and let him finish.
uh, luxury vinyl plank, and I really like it. I use Lowe's. My house is 1,400 square feet roughly, plus the Florida room, and they did the whole house in one day, and it cost about a little over $9,000. Now the prices are going to vary, I'm sure of it.
One day. Talking about convenience, right? Renos today are not weeks or months necessarily, provided that the material is available. Okay. The labor is usually there right now. This isn't, the COVID era, or the bubble from 2004 and 5 through 2007 there. Um, the costs are pretty reasonable. The convenience of doing a full renovation on an older home, you could argue, is there. If you plan it properly and you execute your design, um, it could be as little as a week for a full renovation. So just play that in mind. We don't have to make mountains out of molehills, right? You could have a beautiful home in an area that you enjoy, with the lifestyle elements that are important to you, in as little as a week after closing. Heck, you could even set some of this stuff up during the pending process. I don't necessarily recommend that, because sometimes, inevitably something happens with the closing. You may wind up with a later closing date than what you intended. Um, but you could start that with a little bit of a buffer space in between. Let's jump back in here.
Plus, I had a military discount in there from Lowe's. So, but I was really happy with that decision. So far, I have about $10,000 invested in this house, and it's starting to come along. It's starting to look the way I want it to look. One of the reasons I liked it up here was the yard was really nice and big, and I liked some of the landscaping. Some of it is overgrown, and I'm working on that next. I'll probably do a separate video on that. But I do have a beautiful yard up here. I got a very long driveway, which I like. As far as for the villages, I noticed down south, it seems like the setback, the houses are a little closer to the road. Not all of them, but some in the similar price range that I was looking at. My house has a newer roof. I might be updating or replacing the kitchen and the two bathrooms, but there's still a lot of work I have to do. I like the convenience of the north area. I use the VA clinic, which is 5 minutes from my house. I have Spanish Springs, which is 2.9 miles away, which is awesome. And I use the gym down there, and I like Spanish Springs. I like the water features down there. It is one of my favorite squares. And they're putting in a Blondie's, which looks pretty exciting. It looks like a pretty cool setup. And I'm really close to Sumter Landing. So if you live in the Spanish Springs area, Sumter Landing is right down the road. I might have bid lower than what I paid for the house because it was a turnkey, ironically, just to get rid of this stuff and the hassle of it all. Ultimately,
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Turnkey generally equals convenience. Sometimes furnished, particularly when it's remainder balance or leftovers, it can be detrimental. It can create an inconvenience, right? And he's realizing this post purchase. It's probably a conversation if I had been his agent, which I wasn't. We probably would have had that conversation pre-purchase, but you know, I can't be everywhere all the time. So unless I'm on the internet, so uh, you know, I like this video. I the unfortunate part is that a lot of folks wind up in this situation where they come to these realizations after the fact, after money has been spent, after inconvenience has been absorbed in these circumstances. But what I'm really excited about is that he is deriving the value from the location. He's understanding and contextualizing um, what his lifestyle, what he's actually paying for and what he's actually bought when you're moving to the villages. He's kind of got his head around that, and he is engaging it in a way that's making him happy. And so I'm thrilled to hear that. Let's continue and wrap this up here. I don't want the video to go too long this time. I'm trying to keep it under 30 minutes, guys. I promise.
I don't know. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to stay here. I definitely want to bring this house up to a more current look and feel before I sell it, if I do sell it. But for right now, I like it. Some of the hard stuff is over with, mainly painting, like I said, which I did myself, and putting the floors in. That made a huge difference for me. Now, I still have to do some work on the windows. I'm out in the Florida room. Once I ripped out the blinds, I noticed that there was some seals inside the glass that looked like heat over the years caused them to warp out a little bit. So I'm probably going to have to update those windows, and then I'm going to put in window treatments, maybe something like plantation shutters or something along those lines. I don't know yet. Back to the subject of buying a turnkey, I would just reiterate, don't buy the house because of the furniture. Buy the house because of the bones of the house and that you love the location, because furniture is furniture. It's so much easier to replace. You can't replace the location. I do love living in the villages, and quite honestly, anywhere in the villages is a great place to live. You know, I know all the hot areas are down south and all the new stuff, but make sure when you come down to look at homes, if you come and do a lifestyle visit or something, that you talk to a villages realtor and you talk to an MLS realtor. Do a lot of homework online. I saw a turnkey video after I bought this house that I wish I would have seen before. I'll put the link down below, and watch all the other videos of the popular folks in the villages. I ended up luckily happy with the end result, but it was a lot of work to get here. You know, I'm a decent do-it-yourselfer, but for some folks, especially the older folks, you know, keep that in mind when you come down here. It could end up being a hassle. Every case is different, obviously, and I'm not knocking any of these turnkey houses by any means. Some of them have great furniture that I wouldn't replace. Thanks for watching the video, and you know, I'd like to get some feedback on what you think of the progress of my house so far. Have you had similar experiences with turnkey? Did you buy a turnkey and you're happy? Or anything you want to talk about, by all means, I appreciate any feedback. And this is a brand new channel. I really don't know what I'm doing, and half the time I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to the video.
I can sympathize with the brand new channel. Fortunately, I do have some idea of what I'm talking about. I wonder if it's not Chief. Somebody's going to have to tell me. What is this, Chef or Chief? I heard him mention military discount. I heard him mention VA. So I'm wondering if he wasn't in the Navy in his and it's not Village's Chief. But I don't want to focus too much on that. My reading skills are not why we're here. Yeah, you know, he has done a fantastic job with this, being that he more or less walked into this situation somewhat blind, and not a lot of guiding instruction or information being provided to him, which is unfortunate and something that hopefully we can prevent future uh, folks from having that be the case. So maybe they get a chance to pop in and watch this particular video. I do enjoy um, this content. I appreciate him sharing his experience. It's very much his experience, but it's not totally unique. Um, as I hope I've outlined here, this is a thing that occurs. And so we want to be conscious of it, and we want to make sure that we are engaging it in a productive way that makes sense for our future goals and plans. Let me go ahead and just wrap this up real quick. I think he's just going to do his outro here. Let's see.
Villages. So I'm learning as I go. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe.
You got it, pal. We are going to hit the subscribe button. There it is. We'll throw a like on the video. Why not? All right, let's jump back in.
Share the video, and maybe it's a different perspective than what you're used to seeing. So anyway, have a good day, guys. Bye.
Yep. So, yeah. Is his name Hobby? I might have to go check that out and see. Maybe I can answer my own question with a little bit of research. Guys, this has been Realtor Reacts. I know this is not a traditional topic of conversation. Hopefully, we were able to derive some value from this experience. I know I say that at the end of the most of the videos because I really do want that to be the case. I look forward to your thoughts and comments. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you find the information and the content enjoyable. I am endeavoring every day to do better and better. So thanks so much for joining us. Do come back and visit with us next week. I have 4 or 5 other videos I've pre-selected for Realtor Reacts. So we're going to keep this train chugging on down the track here. I'm having a good time. I hope you're having a good time. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week, hopefully. You thought the video was over. It is. This is an apology. Excuse me. To Chief. Chief, if you see this video at any point in time, I do apologize, sir. Man to man. I took 20 seconds after the video was done, and I was in the process of editing it to look it up and try and figure it out for myself. Would have been great if I invested that time in the beginning instead of spending an entire video continually getting your channel name wrong. It was not my intent. I do apologize for that. I do look forward to continuing to enjoy your content and react to it here on the internet. I think you're doing a great job. I think your presentation is fantastic. I love that you're sharing your perspective. It helps us tremendously. I have a perspective that sometimes I don't get the feedback from folks after they've made the purchase. So throughout this process of doing this web series, I'm getting that at the same time, and I appreciate you taking the time to put that on the internet, sir. So beyond that, I wanted to thank you for your service in the defense of our nation. I'm assuming that you are part of one of the military branches, or retired from, I should say. And thank you very much for taking that on during your lifetime. So again, I apologize. I should have taken the time in advance to make sure I understood what it was I was looking at, and that was my failing. I do hope you'll accept my apology. Have a good one. Look forward to seeing you in the future.